All right.
Right.
Okay. Yeah, it's actually a very good question because it is very difficult to try to describe a Jedi Gathering if you've never been to one. The first one I ever went to was in 2018. It was the one where we went to Tennessee in the Smoky Mountains. It was it was an adventure to get there. And that is what continues to be the theme of Jedi Gatherings, is that it's always very interesting getting there.
Yeah.
Most of the locations are located in very beautiful scenery, but that also means that you're going up mountains and there's driveways, there's logistics to getting
I think Miles put it the best, which is the first Jedi trial.
A trial.
is
There's
getting to the
5
gathering.
trials. Yep.
Yeah, the 5
The first.
trials. The first one is getting to the gathering. If you get to the gathering, you pass the trial.
Yeah, so that's usually part of the journey, and we got so many cool.
Trial of arrival.
We Joshua and Miko were there first, and we ended up getting there, but everybody had a story or an adventure of how they got there. Dan, because like the
Almost
GPS
didn't get there.
like the GPS wasn't helpful, so like it shot them somewhere else, and so we're trying to call
We
people.
had 3 different devices give us 3 different places.
Yeah, plus calling me, right? My Jedi Master, right? Master Angelus calls me up. Where are you? Like where? Like we're here, but we just can't find it. Like what the heck? It was hilarious.
Yeah, the number's on a tree. I
Yeah.
remember you telling us that.
Yeah.
There's a number and it's on the tree. Okay. In the woods.
There's trees everywhere.
But he does that stuff on purpose.
Oh my gosh, but it was so fun. Everybody had like their own adventure. Alex had my favorite because his phone started dying, so he wrote down the map instructions right before his phone died, and he gets there, and I go up to him and I'm like, I'm so excited you're here, and I go to hug him, and he goes, I'm so excited I'm here too because my phone died and I only came here through this, and he showed me a napkin where he had written down in haste the last instructions before his phone officially died.
I told Master Angelus that, you know, the little pass book that we got, that you put all the stickers on it, you accomplished all the seminars.
Yeah.
Yes.
A special one that goes on there that says you arrived at the event.
Yes. I think for the first one.
Yeah, like a certificate that says, congratulations for being able to arrive at the gathering.
Yes.
Oh man, but yeah, a lot of these locations are beautiful, but it's always a challenge to try to find them, to try to get to them. Yeah, that's usually the first adventure that we say, or the first try.
After that, though, you get a feeling of relief, and you also like. What I really enjoy about the gatherings is that they make me feel like I'm home. That's the feeling I get at every single gathering. I'm home.
Hi,
These are my people. Hello, welcome.
Yeah.
Robbie says that things quietly in the background. That's why I'm cracking up laughing. He goes, you know, it would have been handy to have Dora's backpack with the map, and that would have helped us get there.
Yes, because that's usually what's so beautiful about it, because as people are arriving, you just get to see people that you connected with online. So while it is an adventure to get there, I'm always so happy to see those faces. I got called the ambassador of hugs.
Yeah.
But my goodness, I just love being able to finally get to see the people that I see online all the time in person. It's just so beautiful to get to see them and to like interact with them.
Karina gets to have the most titles out of anybody, because like I went from just being a knight to I actually became Master Jedi Knight at the event. But that's her new title. But the thing is, so Karina gets to be a Jedi Knight, so she's working towards becoming a master. But now she is the ambassador of hugs. She's become the guardian of the heart, She's now the head of the International Jedi Federation of blah, blah, blah.
Blah, blah, blah.
Blah, blah, blah. Right? Community, right? So she's got more titles than any of us. We're not that
Yeah,
important
I'm
anymore.
gonna start rattling it off like Daenerys.
That's it. Like when she signs off in an email, it's gonna have all these things like, you know, PhD.
Ambassador of Hugs, especially, is gonna be the one.
Probably because she needs a vest so she can put all the titles on there.
Yeah, I kind of want to touch on James's question a little more directly. James, this was my first gathering. I had been training directly under Ali for about 2 years. So I would be knighted at this gathering. So for me, it was getting to meet a lot of people who I had either been in the orbit of, some I had directly interacted with, but the only person I'd met in person was actually Karina. She came to visit me the year before. And so for me, there was so much, I'm also a journalist as one of the things I do. And so there was so much apprehension going into it and so much buildup of what is this going to be? Are these people going to actually walk this? Or is this just going to be a cosplay convention where we're actually in the same house together? And from when I got to the airport and I met Miko Otori there, and he gave me a ride to the house, we had an hour in the car. And from the moment we got together, there was a commonality that I used to experience like growing up in the Christian church when everybody's singing the same note in the hymn. That vibrational commonality was there before we got around the group. And so I had this hour-and-a-half conversation with Miko on the drive there that just had solidified what this had the potential to be. And so then when we got to the house, nobody was there yet. There's no internet, there's no cell phone service, and there are plenty of ticks. But when everyone starts arriving, it was like watching a dozen different flowers bloom in the same moment, because there was all these existing relationships that wove together, but without some of the human tropes of jealousy and possessiveness and demand for attention. But because everyone had so much in one accord, people would flow from one to the other, and people would flow in and out of conversations in ways that you just don't see in the normal world. But it allowed for like the milk and the meat in the same conversations, and for people to hold space. And I mean, even outside of the classes, I saw conversations where people bore weight together that they'd been bearing alone their entire life. And it solidified to me that this is so much more than the mythos had the potential to be. And so that was my take on what the gathering was.
That actually brings up another question, because you were talking a lot about conversations and keeping it as vague as you need to. What one conversation that you had over that weekend is one that you are thinking about even now? Because people were saying earlier that like a lot of the things that were still influencing, still impacting them. So welcome to the Jedi Studio. I'll be your interviewer today.
That's a good approach, though. But so I'll go ahead and kick this off and just say, for me, it was actually speaking with Miles. Well, of course, anytime I speak with Miles, pretty much every conversation is one that I continue thinking about, because he is just amazing. He thinks about everything and anything, and is very well thought of and well scholarly. And he basically said that you're doing a great job at leaving a legacy. And I actually had to have a follow-up conversation with him about that afterwards, and just say, well, what do you mean by that? And it was then just saying that, yeah, I'm creating sort of a culture, something that can continue on even after I'm there. And that really made me feel well. And especially considering that at points during this gathering that, yeah, I wasn't at 100% because I did catch a cold or something just prior. I had to spend several times like just in my room. But I saw everybody else picking up all the pieces and saying, okay, we've got to go do this. Oh, we've got to go do this. It's like, oh yeah, okay. And just everybody was fine, that even some of the calendar, some of the schedule got rearranged to fit everything. And I'm like, that's awesome. Like, yes, people are stepping up. Gatherings don't need me. And that is actually a great feeling that people will continue sustaining this even without me there. Of course, I love going and will love to be a participant as well. But knowing that this is something that continues, yes, it's like a child. It's like something that you're happy that you've invested time into, and you just gain a sense of pride in knowing that it's going to continue after you.
Yeah, this was the 20th Jedi Gathering, right, Gabe?
Oh yes, that was 20th.
Yeah, it started off with Moon Shadow hosting them, and then they kind of morphed into what it is today. But we acknowledged where the roots started, and we gave her a nice acknowledgement, a little plaque where of all the events, because she has never missed one. I'm pretty sure she's been to all of them except for the one that we didn't have in person, which is in 2020 due to COVID. But I think that's what is the most beautiful about it, is that you get connected to these people across, the country and across the world that can make it. Yeah, it's difficult for me to just pick one conversation, because I think that's the beauty of the Jedi gatherings, is that one conversation will cause like a domino effect. And some of the themes too that end up revolving is also really interesting, because people tend to feel like they're dealing with very isolated events. But what ends up happening is that people start recognizing that there's a lot of space that you can hold for each other when you share vulnerabilities, when you share your authentic self, and other people start to also feel like they can be their authentic selves. And you get this like little mosh podge of people doing their best to help in the ways that they can. We had people who would like volunteer to be in the kitchen and to help with the cooking, and we had people helping set up rooms and helping people move from one place to the other, because we have people there with disabilities and medical conditions. So we have people who have medical experience helping in the ways that they can. And it's just like there's a little community of people who have special abilities and stuff that they want to offer and help. So it ends up being like this support network a little bit. I like to think of it that way. I like to think that the classes are just, are there to kind of hold space and to help us get to know each other a little better. But my favorite parts are always afterwards, are always the conversations that naturally flow together. The little groups that like gather, the ideas that start to form, because it is really powerful to come across other people who also believe in the Force and how it expresses itself. And I think that's also what's really beautiful about it, is that at gatherings, we understand that everybody approaches the path differently, and everybody gives each other space with how they want to approach the path and explore the path. And it's easier in person to understand that how important it is to them. And so it allows for a lot of more of that space, a lot of more of that compassion, a lot of that more patience that you don't tend to see online, if I'm going to be candid. People who want to define what it is, but at gatherings, like, you remember the humanity of what it is to believe in the Force, and the gift that it is to find other people who also believe in it.
I think another thing that is missed online is the connection and context. So when you're chatting, most of the time we talk in text, and the information being provided might have some content that resonates with you, but having those conversations in person and having that energy flow between people is, I think that's way more powerful and in the interaction and dealing with each other. So.
That makes a great deal of sense. Both of you, actually.
So I'll kind of share my answer to that question as well, James. I kind of have two separate moments. The first was more an activity that really tied the event to the past for me. That was really cool. Miles, when we were doing lightsaber dueling in the backyard, from my understanding, he used to be a fencing instructor of some sort. If I'm wrong there, somebody correct me. But he actually went through the different forms of lightsaber combat while transitioning them to actual sword work and fencing, to take something that before had at best been twirling swords in my mind and make it a very functional thing. And so that to me was really cool, because as a very visual reader, I'd always seen certain things in my head. And this literally concreted things that before were just words, and combat into almost an actual art form itself. So that was really cool because it almost inspired a new passion with me, or not passion, a new kindling in me, I guess. So I starting to take historical European martial arts classes for the long sword and dagger training. Partially because my Jedi big sister whoops my butt in the lightsaber duels, and I got to be ready for next year. But the conversation that had the most weight for me personally, the class I taught was on the butterfly effect of our words, using the chaos theory physics model of the butterfly effect, but applying it to humanity. And part of that activity was we asked everyone to write down on one side of a sheet of paper the kindest thing or the nicest thing that anyone ever said to them. And on the other side, the most hurtful thing that anyone ever said to them. We obviously prefaced with the ability to exclude, to not have to share. You could also indicate that you didn't want your story shared. But the intention was that we were going to read these as a group and bear the weight together. And I won't dive into anybody's personal details at all, but afterwards, some of the teenagers at the event had stayed for that group. And so they were exposed to the words that spanned across generations. And they realized the same hurts that they're giving each other and receiving from each other now are the ones that their parents and grandparents, aunts and uncles were dealing with then. And one of the other Jedi Knights, who actually sat on my night review board, in fact, pulled me aside and said that it had made the teenagers think about how they choose to speak to each other. And to me, that was, because that's my area of study is chaos theory physics. So to me, it was just teaching what I fully believe on a mathematical basis. But to see something of that level apply to a teenager so directly, really, it cemented the purpose of the whole weekend for me. Because I felt like I'd shown up to give and share something and ended up receiving something even greater in the process. So that was the most significant conversation for me.
I think that the entire weekend, the entire time they were there, over 4 days, was a time for firsts, a lot of firsts. So Joshua, it was his time to become knighted. He gave his first seminar, first workshop that I think was very successful. And even though a lot of people kind of wanted to say, well, I don't know if I want my thing read, I think by the end, everybody was just being very forthcoming and sharing. Everybody wanted to give context, as Peter was saying, give context to what was said. They wanted it to be clear. And I think that went over very big. I also feel that Karina was knighted, and this was a big step for her into the IJF and what she's doing in the community. So lots of stuff there, right? And then I didn't see it coming, but they decided to deem me as a master in IJF, which was very exciting for me. And then all of a sudden, my master turns around and says, well, I'm going to be the person presenting Karina to the community as a knight. Therefore, I want you to be the master of ceremonies at the knighting. And for me to do that for my friend Karina, that was huge. So I was like, oh my God, I just love when I could walk away from a gathering and go, my gosh, this was just such a good experience. So many wonderful, all that positive energy just flowing in, and made some new friendships with the people that are there. I love that. And this was the very first gathering that my son came with me, and he loves the whole Jedi thing. So it was great to have all the teenagers who all were there. We had 7 teenagers, which was a really big thing for us. That was big. First, having that many teenagers there. Uh, there was just so many good first time things. And then Allie becoming a master of the order as well, by my side. Like that was a big thing. I love Allie's like my sister, truly. And she that was a big deal. I mean, Allie and I talk every day. And so for us to become deemed as masters under Master Angelus was a big deal. And so I don't want to like take over the whole chat here. I have the propensity to do these things, but so I'm just going to share my thing, which was I got to become a master of IJF, and that ceremony, the going through the labyrinth, everybody tends to do it a little differently, and I didn't want to repeat. Like Allie got up and said what she said. I don't like. Well, I'll just say the same thing and just get through it. It's not a scripted thing. So I want to be very inspired by the moment. I knew what was going to be asked. Well, no, for the most part, I had an idea, but I want to be inspired in the moment to say what I was going to say. And the people who asked me the questions actually turned out to be people that were very important in my life. I didn't even plan that one. That just happened. So I decided that the way I wanted to be was not to kid around. And I joke around stuff. It's the way I deal with reality. I kid around all the time. But I decided I wouldn't want to be that. So in my head, I said, okay, I'm going to take on that, Spock kind of thing, be very stoic, very serious, take it seriously. And so when I walked through, I was very, as a matter of fact, and be like, okay, get my meditation, get my, focus on, walk around, really take it all in. And when I had to answer the questions, I brought on what I felt was very meaningful, important answers to what I wanted to say, to let our community who was there to witness it really see who I was and what my intent was going forward with as a Jedi Master. I really wanted to take that seriously. And each one of the people who did that was important to me. And when I answered the questions to them, I was really trying to make sure I connected with them and to let them know I was serious about those answers. And then at the end, I'm getting there, and there's my Jedi Master, who has the final words at the end of the labyrinth. And I'm being all stoic and everything, and he starts to get emotional. And I'm saying to myself, oh God, he's going to make me cry. Don't, and he starts to get all choked up, and he sees getting emotional, and I can't help myself. I'm an emotional guy to begin with. So here I am trying to be all serious and everything. And then I start to get all, I'm like, I said to Allie, she holds my hand. I'm like, oh God, I'm going to break down crying. Oh God, I'm like, oh God. He's going to start crying. He's going to get emotional. You can hear what he's saying. And I know it's so heartfelt, but it just made it special. And everybody was so genuine and happy for us. And it was really a great moment. Such a wonderful shared moment with everybody. Again, my friend Karina, very close with me, she got to become a knight announced by the Federation. I got to become a master, and again, that special day we shared together. How awesome. Just so my son got to witness me becoming a master with IJF. How awesome. The wonderful first time things, all that one weekend was just so much. So I had a great time. Everybody should make sure they get to a gathering.
Yeah. It's the places that end up getting chosen sometimes are a little, like I said, complicated to get to, but a lot of the times just kind of feel kind of homey. There's rooms that are available, but a lot of the times there's like shared spaces with other people. And the way that the last couple of years they've kind of divided the rooms, I thought was very clever. I ended up being in the Mustafar room. which I thought was great. But yeah, it ends up being more of like a little, like a cabin, something that's connected to nature, and people are allowed to dress in Jedi garb if they want to. A lot of people just choose to wear what they're comfortable in. I typically do like a mix of both, where I'll start off the morning like in regular stuff, but as the day progresses, I end up putting something else, put on my Jedi garb, and depending on what ceremonies and stuff are happening, people get all decked out. I love going around and taking pictures of everybody. Everybody looks so fantastic. That is absolutely my favorite part, getting people and like posing them so I can get the perfect shot about them. Because people really you can tell, and I love how unique every robe is. The way they want to express themselves, I think, is so unique. So I love capturing that moment, and I just love capturing people wanting to be genuine in how they explore the path. So I'm trying to think what other things that get missed when these conversations, because yes, the connections are all beautiful, but to really put it into perspective, what it actually looks like is a little more difficult, because it can be so unique, but like down to earth, it's not everybody's there to I don't know, push some sort of idea or anything, but more just to meet each other where we're at and helping in any way that we can.
If everyone's ready for the next question, I actually think I might have one.
Yes.
I
Cool.
was going to answer one
Ooh. Yes, please.
if you're interested.
Absolutely.
Oh, yes, of course.
Talking about first times and a first time experience, it was my first experience. And when I walked up and saw everybody was a little bit standoffish, like, who's this strange person walking up in this cabin? I'm like, okay, all right, I'll just keep my cool. I'll walk in here and just chomp on some pizza. But like, it took no time at all. People just started walking up, and the conversation was very organic, very welcoming. And what stood out to me is I'm used to, in any instance, like taking care of my own thing. And I put the dishes in the sink, I start washing the dishes, and then people just start gathering around and start washing dishes, and everybody just naturally like picks up the slack, just naturally does everything. And it was just like this, it was both like the physical interaction in the conversations just constantly flowed from one section to the next. And I've seen people working together in a way that everybody worked together. And that model like solidified in my mind. And I have like many conversations about it. And again, Miles, sit down with Miles, and I'm a data person and a numbers person, and he's drilling down into the data and this study and that study, and people, how they psychologically reason and think, and their drives and their motives. And so I start, of course, when I got home, I look all this stuff up. I already had a community cleanup organized before I left. And it just so happened the weekend after that, everybody came out and everybody was saying, oh, this person doesn't do this, this person doesn't do that. And I'm like, well, by the numbers, I was well armed because of Miles. I'm like, by the numbers, people do this, people do that. And I was able to like motivate them and get their mind off of the part of people that didn't, but we're here and each of us has these talents, and this person's gonna, cut this tree, this person's gonna power wash this fence. We're gonna work together, we're gonna get it done. So it was like, I went to the Jedi, experienced it, had the conversation, and then took it home with me.
It was so nice to meet you, Christine. I
Nice to
love
meet you
this.
too.
That's a key thing that we all should share, is taking something home with us, and from a conversation or interaction, like being able to have something tangible, that to work with moving forward. So, and I think that's a beautiful thing of these gatherings. I mean, last year was my first one, and was able to just experience very similar things where I was one of the first people there, and I was very worried that I was in the right, wondering if I was in the right place, and Gabe just welcomed me in, and it was just like, okay, it's all good, it's great, it's fine.
Yeah, I forgot that was your second one. You guys fit so beautiful in already.
Yeah, I saw Peter definitely brought it pretty strong with his Jedi garb and his lovely wife Tabitha, who also their garb was very beautiful.
I love your garb. It was very, very nice.
Yeah.
I took some very beautiful pictures of them outside with the sunset and the lightsabers. Oh my God, they look so beautiful. I don't know if you guys shared that. I didn't share it because it just, I captured a moment, but my God, those are so cute.
I don't know. I'm not sure.
I'd love to share that
they've
because,
gotten
man,
shared
you
or
guys
not,
look
but
so lovely.
yeah, it was great. What's our next question?
Yeah.
Hmm.
So everybody's being really quiet. I enjoyed
James
meeting new
is
people.
thinking of a question.
It's all good.
I've
It's all
almost
good.
got one. You go.
It's all good. It's all good. It's nice. It's almost like having somebody interview us. It's neat. I like it.
Yeah.
I like it. I like it.
So this is a two-part question. Feel free to only answer one or both parts. What is one thing from the outside world that you wish would have been in the gathering? And what is one thing in the gathering that you wish would be in the outside world?
Wait.
For example, I wish that the Jedi Gathering had good Wi-Fi, but I wish the outside world was more generous.
Wow, the Wi-Fi one's powerful. That's for sure.
Most people are actually social.
It
That's
almost
so
works both ways
accurate.
because I do wish that the gathering had better Wi-Fi, but at the same time, I wish that the outside world didn't have Wi-Fi because by not having the Wi-Fi, it did force us to, interact with each other and have these conversations. And it was only like one or two people who did have to leave the premises to get their work, to do their work. But aside from that, it showed that that the internet isn't, or it doesn't hold that big of a draw on us, except for perhaps work. Because all of these people that we're talking to on the internet are all here now in real life. Well, why do we need to be on the internet? So it was very interesting in that remark.
No cellular, no Wi-Fi. I felt like Gilligan's Island. My hands started to shake. Like, I think after a while I started to pretend like my phone was working. Oh, hello.
He drew a face on a volleyball.
Yeah, I was thinking about drawing a face on a volleyball and pretending it was cellular. Like, I think my master did that on purpose because I'm making you disconnect for 4 days. I'm like, oh no.
I know. I saw that there's no Wi-Fi.
Oh my God. I think. Oh wow. There's so many things I wish that they had gourmet food at the gathering. No, don't get me wrong. We ate. There was plenty to eat. We were fine. It was great. But just, if you wanted me to up a game, there you go.
Come on, Jedi Master Chef.
You know something? I'm willing to bring it. I've had those years where I did bring it. So give me a chance and I will shock everybody. And then if there was something from the outside world, wow. I don't know. I mean, we had everything we needed in that respect. Yeah, I would love to be able to, next year, I would love to bring my own blanket and pillow. I should have brought those type of things.
No ticks.
Yeah. And then a shield, a barrier that keeps bugs away. Yeah. I'm gonna bring.
I swear, every single one of us had a tick.
I didn't have a tick, thank God. But yeah, that drove Sarah bananas.
I didn't have a
It's
tick.
crazy.
I didn't have a
it
tick
was so-
either. They
That-
went out
that
was the
hiking
only tick I
in
had.
backcountry. I don't know where they went hiking, but
We went up like the hill. It was like all the way. Do you know those big old like power lines like from like on the left of the house? There's a big old hill with a trail you could go up. So yeah, we would just go there.
yeah, they were
Well-
walking deep into the woods.
The trail of ticks.
Yeah, that's where the tick hive was. But what I'm going to do is they have this device I'm going to try to test out, which actually keeps mosquitoes and ticks away from you. It's like an electronic barrier. I'm going to get one. But yeah, that would be it. Bug spray is a good one. But the one thing I think I would love to have is I'm going to make sure I bring my own blanket and my own pillow. Yeah, my PlayStation. No.
Well,
But-
nothing stops you from bringing that other than the restriction on the space you had to bring it.
The pillow and the blanket? Oh yeah. But I think what I'm gonna do is I got you got the bags that like vacuum them down. I'm gonna do it. That was the only thing. I would say. That's my answer.
So I'm going to answer the first part of it. Oh, I guess I'll answer both. The one thing, because this was my first gathering, and before I got there, there was kind of that question of, is this going to be anything like a con or convention? Like, I kind of not expected, but wondered if we would see any panels of any sort tying the mythos into what we were doing. And there wasn't a lot of that directly. But by the end of the weekend, that almost ended up being a positive thing, because there was so much layering of like just philosophy and psychology and anthropology and just humanity overlapping that you didn't really end up missing that. But the nerd in me would love to see something like that in the future as well.
Yes. I loved, I think that's partially why I really enjoyed Miles, because Miles tied in the Jedi code very nicely into a lot of it. Yeah, I would love to see a little bit more tie into the mythos. But even that's controversial. There's people that don't want anything to do with lightsabers in the community. But I think that's, again, there's always every year IJF opens the floor to anybody who wants to teach. That's something that anybody can apply to. So anybody that wants to offer something, any of their knowledge, anything they want to bring forth, they can. And that will just go through a review board, see if it's appropriate. But I think everybody has an opportunity to bring knowledge, and I think that's very valuable.
I would like, is my first gathering, and I know the tips are bad, but more outdoor activities. Like bring the outdoors into the Jedi Gathering, I guess, a bit. There's and a nice fire was going, but yeah, but I'm an outdoorsy kind of person.
Yeah. I think this one just didn't allow it very well, but in the past we definitely held fitness classes outside. Ross definitely gives some really cool martial arts stuff outside when we have more space. This time it was like raining, and so some of that was also prohibited, even for my class. When we went outside, it was started raining. But definitely outdoor stuff is something that happens depending, I guess, on the location. Because I think there was one where there was a waterfall we went to last time, and I think that was very beautiful. But again, that's what makes it challenging to pick a location, because the places that have the coolest things are usually the ones that are the most difficult to get to. So the ones that have the really cool water fountains and areas or cabins, those are the ones that you have to go up these random trails that a lot of cars can't get up. And but yes, I would love to be able to find a location, but because these gatherings rotate, it's hard to really find one specific place that works for everything, that has good Wi-Fi and, you know, has the stores available to be able to grab everything. But those are, you know, part of the logistics of trying to get something like this to happen. But yes, I would love to have more outdoorsy stuff too, for sure. I love that.
And what I would like to take from the Jedi Gathering out into the world, and which I'm doing the best to do, is people making the effort to find the positive skill sets and talents and personality traits in people, and bringing that out in people. You know, being, you know, making somebody feel, I guess, confident enough to express that, their talents and skill sets. I would like to bring more of that out into the world.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's usually why I end up always experiencing a little bit of a crash after gatherings, but not because I'm like emotionally like drained. It's because I miss everybody so much. So it's more of like I want people to treat each other how we treated each other at the gathering. Because it is really nice to, when you interact with people and they approach you in a very genuine manner. And a lot of Jedi are hoping to kind of help in whatever ways you can. So you get this environment where people are trying to pick up where it's needed and trying to be helpful, and trying to hold space and listen with curiosity. And I think, you know, I absolutely think the world would be better if there was more Jedi around.
I think you're right. One thing I remember hearing from Karina was a particular word: processing. Karina takes in a lot of stuff, and then she kind of needs alone time to process it all. She uses the word process. See, I pay attention. Right? I pay attention.
I guess you could say she has a process of doing
But processing it is a lot to take in. You're taking in a lot of energy, a lot of new relationships, a lot of new concepts. In some of our cases, a lot of new responsibilities. And then, you know, it really did hit me, especially when I got back home and literally unpacking my bags, but also unpacking all of this stuff onto paper.
Yes.
You know, and absorbing that. And again, of course, we're all talking about Miles. So I'm going to say, like, I had my Miles. Every single gathering I've been at where Miles is there, Miles and I always have a special tradition. We share a cigar together. This is our thing. We both are cigar aficionados. And we always have our time where we get to go off and sit with each other and talk. Well, like he would say, I'm going to do my Miles impression, and talk about important things, right? And speak of important things. I love how he speaks. And so I get to sit down and talk with Miles, and we have these very intense discussions while we enjoy our cigar. And it's good because the cigar acts as almost like a timer. When the cigar is done, we know we're done, right? But we sit and we talk, and one of the things he spoke about was, he said, you know, with this now you moving into mastership with the IJF, heavy is the crown that is worn by somebody of title, and you now have to take on these responsibilities. Same thing for Karina, same thing for Josh, same thing for Allie. You know, we all now have new responsibilities that we need to rise to. And I took that very seriously. You know, I sat there going, And so he and I talked about some of the things that I could think about doing going forward. And I took him very seriously, as I take these things seriously, and started at it, you know, because what's the point of rising in title or rising in recognition if you're not going to take on new challenges and new responsibilities, new plateaus of stuff? You know, if you're just going to sit there and do the same old thing, what was the point? So everybody who got to see what was going on there. So if I had to choose one word, I think this is something that our interviewer James will appreciate. If I had to choose one word that represents what I wanted to be at this year's gathering, was I wanted to inspire. I wanted to inspire other people to get to where we're at. I want to inspire other people to go and get the training, go and get to knighthood, go and get to mastership, inspire people to do what we're doing. Because that's what I discovered is what I want to be in life, is I want to inspire people to be more than they are right now. Be more tomorrow than you were yesterday. Yeah, I gotta write that one down.
I think something to take from the gathering into the real world is the open-mindedness and non-judgmental mentality that was present there. Like, everyone was very genuine and willing to listen to your story as you present it, and without judgment, and maintaining an open mind to see if that's something that applies to them or not. And if people in the world had that mentality, hey, yeah, tell me your story, and if it matters to me, I'm gonna take it to heart. If it doesn't matter to me, good for you for having that story, kind of thing. So that's the thing that I feel that the world kind of needs, that is present at these gatherings, as much as what the world has that a gathering needs. I feel like there is lessons that we need to learn as Jedi that apply to really our very survival. So what if something happens? What is the next step? How do we maintain the community and not let chaos take control and cause those people to act irrationally, or that kind of thing. That's what I take from that. So life lessons that apply to everyone in situations, that's a key thing for us to take.
Well said, Peter. James had his hand up.
He was clapping.
I was clapping.
Oh, clapping. Oh, good. Oh, thank you. All right.
I just didn't want to be rude and interrupt.
No, I love applause. Bring them on. It's all good. I've come to realize that I love the attention. I'm not gonna lie, I love it. It's one of my love languages. Bring it on.
You and my cats.
Well, good.
So who's next?
Have you
I
ever
wanna hear from- I
gone
wanna
to
hear from
any, have you guys met any other, or James, have you met any Jedi in person?
In person, no. Online, yes.
Okay.
We apologize for the ones you met online.
Mm,
There's
If I
something definitely satisfying with meeting actual people, actual Jedi, that in person, that's just, it's really fulfilling, really helps round your person and who you believe someone is. You can really get a good measurement of who they are that you can't get from just online chatter.
Yeah.
mhm.
I know that the Jedi community has been around for a long time, but I want to say, to the best of my knowledge, that Gabriel Calderon, Master Angelus, is one of the people who started using the expression Jedi realist, as opposed to, and again, we're not putting anybody down. Everybody gets involved at
Nope,
whatever
that
level.
wasn't me. That existed before me, but I took it in a different direction.
That's what I figured. But I'm just saying that back in when I first got involved, way back in 2007, I had heard it first from you. and the difference between just saying people who are just like keyboard warriors, good, well said.
That's my phrase.
Those who are keyboard warriors versus those that will show up at a gathering or show up at a meetup or show up at a workshop. And I find that I think 85% or more, you get a real sense of who they are in reality versus, that there's maybe 10% that are still come on and you're like, what's with this person? Okay, wow. But for the most part, you get more people who are showing how they apply being a Jedi in real life versus just playing Star Wars on the game or something,
Yeah, this is true. I end up coming across people online kind of portraying a persona. Like this is their character. So it's different when you interact with people online or offline, where this is who they are. They apply it into their daily life, and you can see how it actually manifests versus interacting with whatever character or person that they're trying to portray online. So it's beautiful. Like, and that's why I said that it brings out the humanity, and it reminds people that these are, people that are actually attached to these beliefs. And I think that gets lost sometime online with people and like communities where cosplay and where these intersections kind of are interwoven, it gets things complicated. So but yeah, it's what I think what makes in-person contact with people very special, because you can't put up the pretenses, for very long. People will see right through you.
Very well said by the director of community, blah, blah, blah.
It's interesting, like, because hearing it reminds me a little bit of, and hear me out before you disagree immediately. It reminds me a little bit of SCA personas, where like you come up with this complicated background and that sort of thing. But like when you're walking around Penzic or an event or whatever, it's you. Like when I was Diego da Silva, it was basically James with Italian Ren clothes. But other than that, it was just the same. Where with with Jediism, it sounds like similar in that like you may have like a Jedi name that some people do, and you have specific robes that you may wear, but it's still you, just in Jedi robes.
Yes, that's very well said, James. Yeah.
Yeah, I would say that a lot of people in the community probably know me under the name of Tragamite, and I really never intended that to be my Jedi name. It's actually a name that I thought up as a kid. I don't know, it's 14, 15, something like that, playing Dungeons and Dragons. It is a dwarf name that stems from the stalagmite that grips and holds to the roof of a cavern, and it has this foundation, this rock heartedness. And as I actually considered that meaning of that name, it was just a plain name when I started using it. But as I've kind of considered that, yeah, it's got a foundation that has some, merit to it as a name. When I consider it like that it, holds some weight as a Jedi name. But I've always used my regular name, in talking with people about, Jediism or whatever, Jedi path and such. So, but because my name, the name Tragamite is associated to so many things that I do online, it just kind of has followed me as a Jedi name. And so, yeah, like you say, this having this alternate persona, if you will, but just by having a different name, that plays a factor. So
what's really funny about the Jedi name thing is when you get introduced to somebody, the expression frame of reference. So when you get introduced to somebody by a specific name, that kind of sticks. I mean, back in the beginning, when I first started coming to Jedi gatherings, someone started to refer to me as sensei because I teach martial arts, right? So they started calling me sensei. I never asked anybody to call me sensei, but all of a sudden everybody started calling me sensei. And I'm like, I didn't ask anybody to call me that. Just Ross is fine. That's good. But then, then they say, well, some of us have a Jedi name. So then I took on a Jedi. I have my Jedi name. What's really funny is when you meet somebody who you get introduced to with their Jedi name and you don't know their real name. And then it's brought up in conversation. They use their real name and you're like, who? What? And that happened to me with Miko. Somebody one day referred to him by his real name, Michael. And I was like, who? I think it was Master Angelos who said to me, well, Michael, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, Michael who? And he's like, Michael, Miko. And I'm like, Miko, right? And I'm like, oh, okay. Because who knew, right? It's really, really funny when this alias that you have becomes your primary name. So yeah, the Jedi thing, people start going back and forth. I'm like, wow, these are just too many things to manage here.
I think it's also partially because people take on a Jedi name for where they are on the path at that time. I know some people who like keep reinventing themselves, which you should. You should always continually change and adapt. And as they do, then they change their name. So that's why it is a lot of information to hold at times, but you just keep going with what the person wants to be known as.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
When somebody changes their name every 3 months, it becomes a little difficult to keep track of what's going on. It's a little much.
And I have met those people that will change their name fairly frequently, and it's just, yeah, it's like, do you really identify with who you are? Because it's one thing to change who you've been to who you're going to be, but if you're changing who you are on a regular basis, I don't know that you know who you are. And I think that the part of the Jedi path is understanding who you really are. And if that, if that take on a name, more power to you. But, it is that Jedi path is really about being the best you that you are capable of being for yourself and your community. And so completely changing or changing your namesake or your persona or whatever, is confusing to yourself, let alone the community in whole. So
one thing that it's always a burning question that I've had, and you're going to be the first community I've asked about it. What is the purpose of an alias in the first place? Is it to protect people from sharing, deeply emotional things initially, to create a safe space until they actually meet people?
In my case, because I will admit I use an alias, and the reason I do it is for job reasons. Until recently, I was in a client-facing position, and it's a client-facing position that depends on me earning work. And if they have any reason to not think that I'm anything other than like normal corporate, drone, I stop getting work, I lose my job. So for me, so for me, a lot of the reasons that I used an alias is that basically to make sure that my employer doesn't find out, and then problems. That for me is my primary reason that I've used one in the past.
and I would say that that's a big piece too that a lot of people do, is that privacy factor. So yes.
You'd be surprised though, like, so Sophia went into a job interview and went with the lightsaber hooked to her hip, right? And went into the job interview and sitting there, and the interviewer turns around to her and says, is that a lightsaber on your hip? And she says, yes, it is. And the job interviewer said, that is so cool. And of course got the job. So and to be perfectly honest, and Master Angelos would attest this, I was kind of closet Jedi myself. I didn't let too many people know I was a Jedi. But eventually the story got out, and you're on Facebook and it's out there. So in the martial arts world and in business and my friends, eventually I came out and they said, yeah, I'm a Jedi. and it became kind of a big deal, and it just
Mhm.
grew from there. It when I actually opened up to it, it opened up new doors for me. So I'm no longer concerned whether somebody knows or not, and I
Mhm.
wear that proudly. I don't care. I'm like, yeah, I'm a Jedi. Suck it. You know, that's who I am. You know.
I mean, in that sense, you could argue somebody having what's the word I'm looking for? Racial sexist, or what's the word I'm looking for here?
Bigot?
Discrimination.
No,
Identity.
like discrimination. That's the word I'm looking for. Like if you promote yourself as Jedi, and that's your religious belief in that respect, somebody looking poorly on that is a form of discrimination, and the real, and let's be real with that. But at the same time, like it is a matter of your livelihood that you keep that aspect, because of the ideas that people hold that you're living in pretend world, that could affect your livelihood. Then yeah, I mean there's a reason to be the closet Jedi, as Ross was so eloquently said there. So but yeah, I mean last gathering that Sophia brought that message out, that yes, she wears her lightsaber everywhere she goes. And last gathering, I made the decision that I was going to start growing out a Jedi braid as a promotion of that is the faith that I am following. So after a year, I've got a little bit of growth here. I mean, I wore a extension for most of that first year, just to kind of not have a patch on the back of my head, but a patch of hair, but to have something there to kind of to symbolize it. And now that it's long enough that I can just have it itself. But I mean, I have gotten plenty of compliments about my Jedi braid, and without ever promoting it as such. And I'm like, I'm glad you recognize what it is. That I can, discuss that I am in fact following the Jedi path, and that's, who I aspire to be, and the beliefs of it, and people are like, wow, that is actually really cool. And I've had people, how do I get involved with that? And it's like, you can inspire people just by your presence of presenting yourself to be what you are wanting to be. So
Yeah, no, that
You may
makes a
not-
really good point. Oh, go ahead.
No, so I was just gonna say, Pete, you may not have the longest Jedi braid, but you got one hell of a killer beard, bro.
well, most I didn't get the opportunity to have a braid and a beard at the same time.
I'm just saying. If you gotta be proud, you got it. Just saying.
Yeah, but what Peter's bringing up too is that it reminded me of part of the reason why I didn't really come out initially as a Jedi, but that was because I also was afraid with how like my family would react, because the last time that I tried to express my actual beliefs, like my mom behaved very poorly and said a few things to me about her religion, what's important to her, and afraid of what the repercussions were of not believing the same things. So it's it's difficult it can be a difficult area to function, but I think that is what the people that can be loud, the people that can portray and be loud that they're Jedi, if they are safe to do so, I think it's beautiful, because there's people out there that really can't yet. There can be repercussions for, or they can experience discrimination for the things that people can think of as different, especially if they don't really understand what it is to be a Jedi. What are these people doing? So there's a very good topic of conversation that we've actually have, now that we have teenagers that are coming up through that are being raised by Jedi, like how much of that is influencing teenagers, and how is it that other people are perceiving that? And so there's a lot of different interesting woven conversations about how you explore your spirituality and what religion can be like. Because that's also very an important factor. If this is something that you use to maybe control your emotions a little bit better, and it's more about philosophy, and you're just not a big deal, then maybe it's not a big deal for you. But there's people who apply it, the Jedi path as a religion, a real core part of them, and it's something that they manifest in their daily actions, and we really use it as a way to transform. So then that's also the tricky part with people who choose aliases. There's all sorts of potential reasons that they could be using one, but a lot of it too, I think, is just fear of engaging authentically with something that maybe they're not sure yet about, or don't sure if they want to be a part of. And until they do, until they realize where their place is and how they want to present themselves, I think that's always going to affect with what name or how they want to approach or interact with the community as well.
Yeah, well said.
Just to add another level on that, I know for myself, my name came about not for like job reasons or anything like that, because I started on the path way early, like I was in my 20s, and I created just a name because it was something that I wanted to aspire towards. This was a Jedi, a kind of Jedi that I wanted to be, somebody who was very spiritual, somebody who was dedicated to this. And just at 20 years old, like it was like, I'm not that yet. But I feel like I have gotten to the point where now I am my Jedi name. Therefore, like people can refer to me either by my given name or my Jedi name, and it's all good. Like it's all me. So I finally reached to be that persona that I was striving for.
I had a conversation just the other day with Allie about namings as a religious act. When you get a blessing and you receive a name. And I talked to her about within the temple that I would love to one day actually have this thing in function. One of the ceremonies to be a naming thing where you announce your name, your Jedi name, your whatever name you are taking within the Jedi community into the Force. So that that is who the Force knows you as, and that is who you will be known to who are within the Force. And that's kind of the religious mindset of namesake, because when you receive a name as a baby in your blessing, that's so that the community, the people, know who you are. And the aspect is the same with taking on a Jedi name, but you are choosing who you are going to be. So like Gabe was saying, and people are talking about that they want to aspire to be something, like that's part of that, taking that name in that religious tone. So that's kind of how I think about it when it's one reason that I've thought long and hard about a Jedi name for myself, and just nothing comes to mind that is like, this is my Jedi name, other than the fact that much of the community knows me as Tragamite, and then others know me as Peter, and either works for me. I've been known a lot of my life as Tragamite, with whatever I've done, so it kind of fits that role that it would be my Jedi name. And but that's kind of the thought that I have is, if you are going to be a name for your Jedi path, you are announcing it to the Force that this is who you will be known as in the Force. And again, where me saying somebody changing their name, changing their persona over and over again, they don't really know who they are, and the Force has no idea who they are because they keep changing. So that's kind of the thought I have on that. And talking with Ali, like that, it just kind of solidified that mindset in me that that's kind of how it could be. Maybe not yet, but could be.
Yeah.
It's a great.
That's how I approached my name initially. My name is, our Jedi name is Adastrea. And I chose that before I became a Jedi Knight. It's something that I felt like resonated, but as I grew and learned, it almost didn't feel like it fit as much or as well. There was different things that I explored about spirituality that made sense, but I also honor the beginnings of where I started, and so I actually really like it too. But I think Jedi names are something very interesting, but I love that people can get to choose it. You know, if it's something that resonates with you and is something that gives you power and is something that you can claim to help you, I think you should be able to do that as well. But yes, to sit and meditate and to choose is I think something that should be approached with a lot of care. And I think that people who are maybe switching their names, maybe just haven't settled into it. But I think that's just what's complicated about the online community anyways. You're always having to choose who you want to come out as, because there's only a certain amount of people who are able to genuinely be themselves online, especially in forums where a lot of, like I said, a lot of cosplay and a lot of role playing takes place, where you are kind of exploring a space or a mental state where maybe you're not normally, but you're stepping into a role that potentially might resonate with you. I'm not super into the role playing aspects of it, but I can see how there can be a lot of transfer over. And you even see some Jedi claiming that, well, this is my online persona. And I was like, well, I feel like you should be presenting as your genuine self. If this is a path that you want to claim that is real for you, then portray yourself how you would normally portray yourself. Your online persona is you for anybody who interacts with you. So I think that's something too that needs maybe for people to notice how much weight a name can carry. But yeah, I do think that could be something at Jedi gatherings too, maybe something that we claim, you know, or state out loud so people know. I love that. Yeah, I like that idea.
I like that idea as well. To add on to what Peter had said, or wait, I was good. That's something I might track of mine. Got it. Takes me a second. What Tragamite had to say is that the name that people like when someone gets baptized, they get a baptismal name, an added name that's on their name. I get to know what my Hebrew name, which is where my Jedi name came from. I changed it a little bit, but so my Hebrew name is Raphael. It's Raphael bin Ruvain. Raphael bin Ruvain. So I made my Jedi name Raphael Ben, like Ben Kenobi, right? Ben Raven. But so the significance of my Hebrew name, for me, I have a very tight connection to my dad. And my name literally means Ross, son of Robert. What's really cool about that is when my son Robert, who's away for the moment, is now his name winds up being Robert, son of Ross. It's the inverted version of my name. So it's kind of cool. But I think that these names should definitely have I'm a person who believes that things need to have significant meaning. It's much like Karina gets her tattoos, right? You've gotten tattoos. I know for a fact, because I know my friend Karina, that her tattoos have meaning. It's just like, oh, this is cute. You know, it's not like that. Karina gets tattoos that have meaning, that tell a story on her body, right? I also bear the tattoo of my martial arts logo. And for me, getting a tattoo is a big deal because I was born Jewish, and being Jewish, they don't take too well to being tattooed. It's just one of the rules. But when I started my own martial arts system, when I opened up my school, I felt compelled to bear this on my body and had it tattooed on my body. It had great meaning. And students that I've had who really have gone the distance and trained with me seriously have gotten that tattoo. I didn't tell them to do it. It wasn't like they demanded on them. They did it because it was almost ceremonial, that they said, oh, this is something I've accomplished. So what Peter has said is getting this name, your naming day, would be very, very powerful to kind of proclaim that, yes, I recognize this is my Jedi name that I received as part of being recognized by the community. I like this idea.
I think that's
Now-
also what's really cool is that all the tattoos that people have too with the Jedi. I'm like, oh yeah, I have mine too. It resonated so much that I wanted it permanently tattooed on my body. I know Joshua has a few of them. I'm like,
I love Joshua's tattoos. I literally sat there staring at them even while we were reviewing him, while we were doing his knighting review.
yeah.
And I was like, staring at the tattoos, trying to figure out what was going on. And it almost tells a story.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there looking at his tattoos. I found it fascinating.
I'm sorry, James, what were you gonna say?
So we've got 13 more minutes, and there's one more question that I feel obligated to ask because you put it in your description of the event itself. What are you hoping to do moving forward as a group? What's next? Are we going to have to wait another year for getting together? Will people just have to randomly show up at other people's house and hope the cops don't get called?
That's what I
using
do.
carrier
That happens a
pigeons.
lot. That happens a lot. Ever since the gathering, I've had a number of Jedi who, so we all have our fandoms. This is another thing we have in common. We have our fandoms that are outside of Star Wars, right? So I'm a huge Marvel fan. I'm an Iron Man fanboy, trust me. So I refer to my home as Stark Tower. Everybody knows this. And I've had a number of people, a number of Jedi have all said, well, I want to come out to Stark Tower and visit you, you know? So I've had a number of people already ask, hey, can I come out? I'm like, hey, everybody's always welcome at Stark Tower. So it is. So I love for people to come out. I love so we could train and do things with, learning Jedi. And we have regional gatherings. Master Angelos, I'm sure, will tell you about our regional gatherings. He's great at that. And then we also, we start scheduling and planning for our gathering coming up for 2024. It takes a lot of work. So Master Angelos, why don't you tell them about the regionals, huh?
Yes, well, obviously, yes. We try to have at least one national gathering every year. And that's the one that takes the most amount of planning. But then we also do try to have regional gatherings, like in more centralized areas or more localized to particular groups. And I know, like, it's a little easier with Chicago because of the size of Chicago, the number of people we have here and in the Midwest. However, we also do try to do our best to give support to people in different regions and having them connect. So there's all these kind of circles getting smaller and smaller. So there's the largest one is national, then there's the regional, and then also trying to help people create little chapters, little local places where people continually meet, whether it's once a month, twice a month, once every, like however many times they're able to. And we also try to give support there. And obviously for people who are a little bit more isolated or they do have difficulty, because we've had people like in Indiana where they're just kind of still spread out in that entire state, at the very least try to get people to meet up online like we're doing right now, having these opportunities where we have discussions and just talk about a whole bunch of things. And I have actually loved these discussions and just being able to interact with everybody, because I'm a little spoiled. I love my Chicago people, but I will say I also do love just everybody else. And it's just always great to hear the feedback and what's going on in everybody else, because everybody has their own perspective. And just hearing how they are doing on their own path, it helps me on my own path as well.
I think that's important. The Jedi, we talk about the Force, right? a big part of the Force is the connection, right? Connection between people. And I think the more that we connect, we stay connected, communicate, visit with each other, get on Zoom and have these group discussions, seminars, workshops, the more connected we are and the more strength it gives to the Force. Ooh, I gotta write that down too. That's great.
Yeah. Dan wrote, as Peter had said earlier about seeing all the Jedi in person, it is inspiring. This year, it has inspired me to look forward to going to next year and teaching either one of the classes I've taught in the past or develop another. And I love that too. I'm already thinking about what's the next class I can teach, or what material do I want to share with my community. I always think that that's one of the most beautiful things that happen. Especially seeing as like with my first gathering, I didn't really talk to a lot of people, and I was actually very intimidated to like even speak out loud. And to last year I held my first class, and this year I held my second. And this year was a little bit more free flowing than the last one. My last seminar was creating connection, where I had a bunch of people interview each other. And
Which was awesome.
I used the Force. I had everybody kind of pair off based on the intention that I put out there, that hopefully they have a conversation that resonated with them. Because like I said, part of my favorite thing about the gatherings are usually the conversations that happen afterwards, the connections that get created. And so I actually made one as one of the classes, and I got such a beautiful feedback on it of all these like important conversations that people, got to hear with others. And even with people that had known each other for years, there were questions that they didn't actually get to explore with them or assumed, and now they were learning new things about somebody they've known for years. I think, like I said, that's usually what's the most beautiful part of the gatherings, is these beautiful connections and relationships that you create with other people. Because that's ultimately, for me, that's what I'm looking for. When I left my religious communities and stuff like that, there was a big hole that was left behind of what I actually did believe and who I wanted to connect with. And to be in a space where other people also believe in the Force, even if it's different, just somebody who resonates so much with like the imagery or what's being taught. That's what really like warmed my heart and made me feel like I was home, because for the longest time I felt like I was by myself. But it's so weird. It was like, I cannot be the only person that like resonated so strongly with Star Wars that they want to incorporate this as their belief. But Star Wars to me was my first influence, or my first step into a lot of Eastern philosophy. Like that's where a lot of that came from. And so to be with other people who resonate with, the undertones of what the Jedi path is, or the undertones of Eastern philosophy, and you get to explore your different topics and different ideas and how you apply it. I think that's what's the most enriching and most beautiful part. But you don't really get to have these conversations unless you're willing to be vulnerable with somebody else and share your thoughts and ideas, and it's easier and more authentic to do it in person. But we do our best what we can online, but it's having these visuals where you can actually interact with somebody else on a genuine level. And I think, again, it's what's the most empowering about of an offline gathering, is that you get to be around people who are presenting themselves genuinely, and most of them are also looking to connect with you. So,
and let's not forget that you serenaded us this year.
Oh, I sure did, and I played my ukulele this year for everybody.
And she sang. I gotta tell you that. All right, so I gotta compare where Karina was at when I first met her to the person you are now. That girl never would have sang in front of us. Let's put it that way. Just saying. And she rocked it.
Just as long as you don't use the ukulele to apologize for anything, you should be okay.
Nice one.
And if if anybody has no idea what I'm talking about, look it up on YouTube. It's a trip. Just Ukulele apology. That's all you need to do. It's, yeah. So we have 5 minutes. So we have 5 minutes left before the formal end. Closing thoughts?
What do you think now? I want to know what you think now that you've heard.
I think James could be our interviewer from now on. That's what I think.
Well, I'd love to know what now, now that you've heard a little bit of what's it like, if you would want to come, or if you
So,
look
okay.
forward to it.
So, well, there is something I want to add after we stop recording,
Okay.
but the
Let's think of
answer is,
that.
yeah. So I'd say, yeah, it sounds really cool. It sounds more down to earth than I initially expected. That's a good thing. You know, it just because, like, when looking at it from the outside, being blunt, it looks a little pretentious when looking at it from the outside. I'm not saying any one person looks that way, but when you look at it from the totality, it gives that impression. But like actually talking with people, it seems more down to earth and more utilitarian than the experience I've had dealing with things in the past.
Mm.
Yeah, and I think that words matter. And I think it's because, to me, the way I look at it is I kind of look at things via ginormous spans of time. Because you know how some people will look at a building and be like, how will this building look 10,000 years from now? Right. And so I think of, I call it Jediism, but just bear with an old man. I think of Jediism as part of a continuum, and thinking of it as like an early religion. Like I think it reminds me of early Christianity, where, and I don't know how much the people here have really researched that, but like early on, they had some wild stuff before they got stuff straightened out. I mean, like there was, because in the beginning, there were all of these various ways to look at relating to the Christ, and it took like 100 or 200 years for everybody to fight and debate and curse and grumble at each other. And after about 200 years, you know, Constantine sat everybody down and was like, figure it out, right? I'm hoping that Jediism doesn't have their Constantine, but I kind of see the similar process of, you know.
We call her Allie.
Yeah.
Yeah, Allie.
Yeah, and it's, you know, yeah, exactly, you know, with her work with the Jedi Compass. And it's interesting to me because I kind of see a lot of the things happening. Like, you know, you have like your controversial heretical figures that, you know, not a lot of people like to talk about. You have like, you know, your luminaries, like, you know, your alleys, you know, your miles. And for me, it's like, you know, looking at the conversations here, I think, well, I wonder what it's going to be like in 300 years when we're all dead and gone. And like archaeologists are like piecing through a lot of it. You know, now I actually have a short story I'm working on that's what it is. It's basically like a sort of dark Star Wars, but like everything went wrong and people are looking at it like 1,000 years after all of the movies that we know of. And so that to me is kind of how I'm seeing it. I would like to try to go to a gathering at one point and be more involved in the community. So yeah, that's what I would say in regards to that. Any questions for me, since I've been asking you a lot of questions?
You could say this is going to be one of those Pee Wee Herman moments. You could say that you were inspired. Oh, you know.
Yes.
I want to know if Christine wants to come back next year too, because this is your first one.
Yeah, I'll definitely be back. I met a lot of really cool people. Yeah. As long as it's not too far away, I'll get there.
Yeah.
Well, then, as long as Allie doesn't do the management of it, you'll be fine.
But hey, I come from Utah, so wherever it's at, you know, it's never too far away if I can get there.
That's true. Peter
Got
does
a
make the
point.
track. That's for
You
sure.
got a point.
Christine is one of the new friends that I made this year, and it was kind of cool that Christine and I were talking again and know each other, and all of a sudden she mentioned something about astrology, and I said, "Oh, that's funny. Like one of my oldest friends in the world is a big time astrologer." And she's like, "Really? What's his name?" And I'm like, "William Stickover." She's like, "I know William." I'm like, "What?" I'm like, "Are you serious?" I'm like, "Yeah." It was really like, really,
Yes, that's
7
also
degrees,
something very
7 degrees from
beautiful.
what's his face, huh?
That's also very beautiful. The interconnections, the people that resonate so loud, like, oh yeah, I have a very similar story. Oh yeah, I didn't know anybody else experienced the same thing.
was
And I've had so many wonderful stories with like that with a lot of the Jedi that go there. But I think that's you get a little microcosm of people who kind of like resonate with a lot of the same things, and you can see it. You can see the force. If I want to, encapsulate everything, is that at Jedi gatherings you can actually see the force at play. It is one of the most beautiful things to witness.
That reminds
That's
me
the
of
Jedi
when
name.
we were sitting around.
Astrology.
Yeah, we were sitting around last gathering, and Sophia was on the phone with Allie, and she was like, showing everybody that was there at the gathering, and Allie says, "Is that Peter?" And I'm like, "How does Allie know my name? How that she's not, like, I'm a little person. She doesn't know who I am. Like, I'm a peon. Why would she know who I am?" So it was fascinating to have that realization that I'm like actually known in the community, kind of thing. Because I mean, to me, like, that very first gathering was like meeting celebrities, knowing who Gabe was, knowing who Miles was, knowing who Ross was, knowing who Karina was, and then meeting all these people for the first time. It was like, oh my gosh, I was like starstruck. So it's like,
Oh, but I'm glad you felt at home, because it definitely felt like the first time I met Allie just gave me the biggest hug, and it absolutely endeared me to her and made me feel at home. And I think that's what's something that's so beautiful about Allie, and she inspires me all the time, is that she goes out of her way to really get to know people, to make them feel like they're part of a community. And you can see it come together at Jedi gatherings, because a lot of the people, and that's the same idea that I like to bring forth, is making sure that people feel seen and connected. And a lot of people see that and also want to emulate that. And I think that's the part where, as Jedi, when we move forward out into the communities, we give people space to be themselves, and we give them the space to feel safe. And I think that as Jedi, as we continue to move and grow, that those are the types of things that we should be cultivating, to bring out into the world, and hopefully, grow our little community to something, 3,000 years later, that if anything stays behind, is our kindness and our compassion that lives on.
yeah.
I like that.
Yeah, I gotta write it down.
I feel like making Robbie into my squire. Write it down. Write that down. It's
All right. I think we'll probably stop recording here, and then that way we can have like a free flowing conversation. But no, thank you so much for everybody who has contributed. Joshua, said goodbye a little bit earlier, but he had to go take care of other responsibilities. But thank you so much for all your time and effort. This has been a very beautiful conversation. Thank you so much.